My name's Hunter Dwaron. I will be going through your morality lesson. And I am currently a college student studying theology at FRANU. And so I'm really excited to be able to get to share with y'all morality and maybe to think a little bit more through what it means to be moral. So when we hear that word moral, morality, what do we really mean by that? And I would say that just means that taking what you know about God, what you know about how He loves us, and putting His love into the world. So being able to show His love to others, and ultimately that means showing His love back to Him. And because what He says is, whatever you do for the least of my brothers, you do for me. And so we know that what we do, how our actions are in this world, shows how we act in love towards God. And so first off, we need to understand what freedom is. So y'all might be aware of this term free will. And when you hear that, you probably think of being able to do what's good or what's bad. So you have a choice. So I can choose to eat candy for dinner, or I can choose to eat something healthy for dinner. And while I might really want that candy, I know that there's only so many days I can go eating that candy for dinner that it's going to catch up to me and it's really not going to make me feel good, and that I need to have that healthy diet just to be able to live practically. And so our spiritual lives are the same. We're tempted by the things that might seem good in the moment and that we might really want. But what we need, what being moral means, is choosing the healthy option and being able to have a healthy relationship with God. And so I'll go over some of the virtues, which are the good things we do, the good things we're striving for. And then there are vices, which are the bad things. And so virtues, you can think of them, are like good habits. So they're habits. So you might think of habits, oh, that's something bad, that's something you have to give up during Lent. But there are good habits in your life that you might not even realize. Something that might be a good habit is that if you notice someone's behind you, you open the door for them. Or another good habit you might have is if you see the trash cans full, you might go and take it out. Or help your parents with some chores if you see there's a bunch of dishes. But a bad habit, a vice, would be if you have this, something that I struggled with was my mom would tell me all the time to do your chores, to clean your room. And I would always put it off and wouldn't go and just do it. And so that was a bad habit of mine because it was something that I did constantly. No matter how many times she would ask, I just kept forgetting about it or putting it off. And so that was a bad habit. And there are important virtues to keep in mind and that the church gives us. And so the first one is prudence. Prudence is basically meaning that in every moment you think through what you can do that's right. So prudence, being prudent, is basically being mindful of how you can do good, but also knowing how can I do bad and not choosing that. You don't want to choose what's bad, but you have to know what you can do that's bad in order not to choose it. And next is justice. And that seems like a one that y'all might be aware of, that y'all might have heard of before, justice. So what we think of it, though, from the church is giving people what they deserve, is doing your part to give other people the respect and dignity that they deserve. And every human, by their being human, deserves to be treated with respect and deserves to be loved. And that's justice. Next is called fortitude. So fortitude would be like seeing someone who might be being picked on and having the courage to stand up and go and help them out. Because you might see it. You see that other person being picked on. So you know you have the freedom to stand there and do nothing, or to go in and help and do something good. Get a teacher maybe, or go in and help the person right there and stand up for them. Maybe I should say, go get an adult. That's probably better advice. So to go get an adult and help the situation, help the kid getting picked on. But you need to have the fortitude, the courage to be able to go and do that, because that can be scary. And we recognize that, and we always want to do what's good. And then finally is a word called temperance. And what this virtue means, temperance, is balance. So thinking about balance in your life. So again, going back to just eating candy, or knowing that I need to eat healthy things as well to keep balance. So candy's good in moderation. If I eat it every now and then, maybe for dessert, maybe for a little treat after I do something. But I can't just eat candy, or else I'm going to start feeling sick, and it's not going to be good. But so in the same way in our faith, so knowing that, we want to have times in our life where we pray, maybe before we go to sleep or before meals with your family, you might pray. And that's good ways to keep a good balance of prayer in your life, and a good way to keep remembering God in your life. And that way you don't forget about Him. With those virtues do come vices, do come things, like I said before, these bad habits. And so each of those virtues of prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance all have vices. And they are folly, injustice, cowardice, and intemperance. So the first one, folly. That would be the opposite of prudence. Prudence, remember, was thinking through the moments and thinking about what's good and doing it. Folly means not thinking. It means being foolish and not taking that time to think through things. Then there was justice on the good side, and on the bad side there's injustice. And injustice would mean not treating people with respect. It means not giving people what they deserve, and it also means not giving God what He deserves. So if I forget about God, then that's an injustice for Him. Next, there's fortitude on the good side, which, remember, was like being courageous and standing up for others when they need you. And then on the other side, there's cowardice. And cowardice, we might think of being a coward, but think of it as almost that you're scared to stand up for what is right, but also that you let others have control over your actions. So when you let others have control over you, then you lose out on your freedom. So that's why it's really important to remember that. And then finally, there's temperance and balance on the good side, and on the bad side, there's intemperance. So this is living unbalanced and feeling sick from eating too much candy or too much junk food, but also feeling sick in your faith if you don't give balance to that, if you don't treat that healthily, and you might feel despair, or you might feel lost from God. And to bring back to the virtue side, there's 3 other virtues that you've probably heard of before. They are faith, hope, and love. We hear those all the time. You might hear it at church. You might hear it in class. So I'm going to say them again here. Faith, hope, and love. And these are very important for understanding morality. So faith means believing in God, and it means trusting in God. If you believe in God, if you really believe in Him, then you trust Him. You trust that He'll be with you. And then hope means desiring God, that we hope for God, that we hope for what is good. We hope that God will help us in our lives. So in a sense, we're being, do they know the word optimistic? Yeah. We're being optimistic. We are looking for the good in life. And finally, there's love. And St. Paul says in the scriptures that love is the greatest of all these virtues. And that's because love binds everything together. It keeps it all together. Because when you're being just, when you're showing faith, when you're being prudent, when you're being hopeful, when you're doing any of those other virtues, you're showing love. And because loving someone means being faithful to them. It means being just. It means being courageous. It means having balance with them. It means all of those things when you really love someone. And it also involves putting it into action, which is why it is such a great virtue to live out. And so, I guess I'll talk about it. Yeah, okay. And so for those three virtues, faith, hope, and love, there are three vices that go with them as well. There's one, instead of being faithful, you're not faithful. And so it means denying the faith. It's called apostasy. And that can be in a very formal term that you might see in the Bible or in church history. But also, that can just mean forgetting about God as you go about your life. So the opposite of hope would be despair for the second one. And despair means not being hopeful. It means seeing the bad and only focusing on the bad things. When, yes, bad things do happen, but there's also good. And there's always going to be that good if you can find it. And then finally, love, the opposite of love, as St. Pope John Paul II says, the opposite of love is indifference. And what that means is not showing any emotion. It means that you just don't care anymore about maybe a friend, a family member, or even God. And that is where we need to really turn from that. To turn that back into love, you've got to start at the foundation. Because even if you have negative feelings towards someone, at least you have feelings. And those feelings can be pointed, good and bad. And so all you have to do is take those feelings and learn how to point them towards good, loving your neighbor. But when you're not showing any emotion towards someone, then it's important to think back on that relationship, to have faith that God is with you and with that person, and hope that you can make it better and you can love them better. And so, in conclusion, have comfort. Have comfort that you know that God loves you, that you know who God is. God is all that is good. And the name of this course is to grow in virtue and root out vice. And so, growing in virtue and rooting out vice is a process. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. No one is. But that's why we look to God to help us to be better and to keep striving towards that. And so do your best each and every day and each and every moment, even when no one's looking. Always remember to do your best to find God and to think about how God is in your life. And He will be there when we do bad. And He will forgive us. He will help us to do better. But when you do good, He's going to be so joyful and so happy for you because He loves you so much.